Your bank account says you are winning, but your nervous system is screaming that you are losing because you are currently paying a hidden tax that is liquidating your soul in real time. You have spent decades building an empire only to become a high-performing hostage to a smartphone screen and the opinions of people who do not even know your name. You are waking up at 3 in the morning with a racing heart to check a red screen because you have allowed the world to install a backdoor into your mind, and you are now a servant to every market dip and every digital headline. This is the terrifying reality of the porcelain lifestyle where you look untouchable to the public. But you are exactly one crisis away from a total identity collapse. In the next few minutes, we are going to perform a cold-blooded internal audit of your character to reclaim the sovereignty you have traded for noise. You are about to discover the 7-word protocol used by Marcus Aurelius to maintain absolute power while his world was falling. Apart and how to apply this to the chaos of 2026. We are not here for generic motivation, but to install an impenetrable Stoic firewall that deletes the virus of panic from your decision-making process. You will learn the geometry of focus and why shrinking your world is the only way to truly conquer it. This is not about being indifferent or lazy, but about reclaiming the energy. You have been bleeding out into a void that does not care about your survival. If you are tired of being exhausted by battles you were never meant to fight, then listen very closely, because we are about to liquidate your internal fragility and return you to the throne of your own life. The bars of your cage are made of your own opinions, and it is time we melt them down to forge a bedrock of unshakable virtue. Your empire begins and ends with your own power of judgment, and it is time you started acting like a sovereign instead of a servant to the marketplace. Let us begin the imperial reset by testing the structural integrity of your soul before the world does it for you. This is the moment where you decide if you are a master of your circumstances or a victim of the digital age. You have spent years accumulating wealth and status, but if you cannot control the quality of your own thoughts, you are still living in poverty. We are going to dismantle the lies you have been told about what it means to be successful and replace them with a clarity that cannot be shaken by the winds of change. Pay attention, because the version of you that survives the coming storms is being built right here and right now. You are not just watching a video, you are attending a military briefing for the defense of your own soul. The path ahead is narrow, and it requires you to drop the dead weight of everything you cannot control, so that you can move with the speed and precision of a true commander. The biological ransom of chronic concern. You need to understand that your anxiety is not just a mental state, but a physical drain that is literally shortening your lifespan and making you dumber every single day. Every time you ruminate on a political shift or a market dip that you cannot influence, you are triggering a survival response that was meant for escaping predators but is now being wasted on digital ghosts. This generates a massive debt of cortisol in your bloodstream that clouds your prefrontal cortex and destroys your ability to think with the precision of a commander. Marcus Aurelius reminds us in the Meditations of Marcus Aurelius, Book 4, Paragraph 3, that our soul is dyed by the color of our thoughts, and currently your soul is being stained a dark shade of panic. You are essentially paying a professional tax with your own health because you have been conditioned to believe that staying informed is the same thing as being prepared. It is not. Being informed about things you cannot change is simply a form of self-torture that turns your biology into a currency for the chaos of the outside world. When you allow external events to dictate your internal temperature, you have already lost the war for your sovereignty. Seneca explains in the Moral Letters to Lucilius, Book 1, Letter 13, that there are more things likely to frighten us than there are to crush us, and we suffer more often in imagination than in reality. You are currently suffering in a simulated future that may never happen, and in doing so you are bankrupting your present power. This chronic concern is a form of biological ransom where you are paying with your energy to satisfy a world that will never be satisfied. You must treat your attention like your most guarded financial asset and stop giving it away for free to the highest bidder on your phone screen. By recognizing this as a physiological attack, you can begin to distance yourself from the emotion and start treating your peace as a non-negotiable requirement for your performance. If your body is a temple, you are currently letting every passerby throw trash in the courtyard, and it is time to close the gates. The first step toward reclaiming your throne is realizing that your worry does not add a single drop of value to the world, but it takes everything away from you. We are about to look at the exact geometry of how this focus works, so you can stop being a floodlight and start being a laser. You have been lied to by a society that profits from your distraction and your fear, because a man who is at peace is a man who cannot be easily sold a solution. You are reclaiming the biological resources that belong to your mission and your family and your future. Think of every useless worry as a parasite that is feeding on your potential, and realize that the only way to kill the parasite is to starve it of your attention. This is not a suggestion, but a tactical necessity for anyone who intends to lead in a world that is losing its mind. Your nervous system was never designed to carry the weight of 7 billion people and their problems, so it is time to drop the burden and return to the only territory where you have absolute authority. The cost of your inaction is your own life, and the price of your freedom is a radical indifference to everything that is not your own choice. The geometry of the sovereign circle, you are failing to move the needle in your life because you are violating the fundamental laws of psychological physics by trying to fight a war on an infinite front. Most people believe that having a broad awareness of every global problem makes them more powerful, but they are actually diluting their impact until it becomes invisible. Think about the basic physics of pressure, which is defined as force divided by area. When you apply your limited mental energy to 1,000 different concerns, you have zero pressure on any of them, and you achieve nothing but exhaustion. You must understand that your influence is a finite resource, and every second you spend looking at things you cannot change is a second you are stealing from the things you can. This is the geometry of the sovereign circle, where you must radically shrink your area of concern until it perfectly matches your area of control. Epictetus explains this with brutal clarity in the Enchiridion of Epictetus, Chapter 1, Paragraph 1, where he tells us that some things are up to us and some things are not up to us. Our opinions and our own impulses and our own desires are up to us, while our bodies and our property and our reputations are not. If you try to own what is not yours, you will be hindered, and you will lament, and you will find fault with both gods and men. You are currently a floodlight that illuminates a wide area but provides no warmth and no cutting edge. A floodlight scatters its photons in every direction and ends up being a servant to the darkness it tries to fight. You need to become a laser, which is simply light that has been forced into a single narrow path until it gains the power to cut through solid steel. By ruthlessly excluding everything that is outside your immediate power of choice, you increase the psychological pressure of your actions to an elite level. This is why the most successful leaders in history often seem indifferent to the news or the opinions of the masses, because they are busy concentrating all their force on the single point where they can actually make a difference. You must stop being a spectator of the infinite and start being the absolute master of the microscopic. When you shrink your world, you actually expand your power because you are no longer leaking energy into a void that gives you nothing back. This is not about being small-minded, but about being high-impact by refusing to play a game where the rules are rigged against you. You are reclaiming your rank as a commander by focusing only on the coordinates where you can actually land a strike. Every time you catch yourself worrying about a distant event, you must pull your focus back to the task currently in your hands with the speed of a reflex. This narrow focus is what creates the silence of real authority, because you are no longer shouting at the wind. You are moving with a precision that makes the world wonder how you stay so calm while everyone else is frantic. Now that you understand the geometry of your focus, we must expose the hidden enemy who tries to convince you that this narrow path is a mistake. We are about to unmask the internal saboteur who whispers that your anxiety is actually a form of protection. The geometry of the sovereign circle. You are currently failing to move the needle in your life because you are violating the fundamental laws of psychological physics by trying to fight a war on an infinite front. Most high performers in 2026 believe that having a broad awareness of every global problem and every market fluctuation makes them more powerful, but they are actually diluting their impact until it becomes completely invisible. You must understand that your mental influence is a finite resource, and every second you spend looking at things you cannot change is a second you are stealing from the things you can actually master. This is the geometry of the sovereign circle, where you must radically shrink your area of concern until it perfectly matches your area of control. If you spread your attention across 1,000 different anxieties, you have zero pressure on any of them, and you achieve nothing but total exhaustion. Think about the basic physics of pressure, which is defined as force divided by area. When you apply your limited mental energy to a massive area of concern, you are essentially trying to heat the entire ocean with a single candle. You will never see a result. However, when you collapse that area down to a single point, you increase the psychological pressure of your actions to an elite level. Epictetus explains this with brutal clarity in the Enchiridion of Epictetus, chapter 1, paragraph 1, where he tells us that some things are up to us and some things are not up to us. Our opinions and our own impulses and our own desires are up to us, while our bodies and our property and our reputations are not. If you try to own what is not yours, you will be hindered and you will find fault with both gods and men. You are currently a floodlight that illuminates a wide area, but provides no warmth and no cutting edge, because your energy is scattered in every direction. A floodlight is a servant to the darkness it tries to fight, but a laser is its master. A laser is simply light that has been forced into a single narrow path until it gains the power to cut through solid steel. By ruthlessly excluding everything that is outside your immediate power of choice, you transform yourself into that laser. This is why the most successful leaders in history often seem indifferent to the news or the opinions of the masses, because they are busy concentrating all their force on the single coordinate where they can actually land a strike. You must stop being a spectator of the infinite and start being the absolute master of the microscopic present. When you shrink your world, you actually expand your power, because you are no longer leaking energy into a void that gives you nothing back. This is not about being small-minded, but about being high impact by refusing to play a game where the rules are rigged against your peace of mind. You are reclaiming your rank as a commander by focusing only on the targets where you can actually make a difference. Every time you catch yourself worrying about a distant event or a future uncertainty, you must pull your focus back to the task currently in your hands with the speed of a professional reflex. This narrow focus is what creates the silence of real authority, because you are no longer shouting at the wind. You are moving with a precision that makes the world wonder how you stay so calm while everyone else is frantic. Your peace is not a lack of caring, but a concentration of power. Now that you understand the geometry of your focus, we must expose the hidden enemy who tries to convince you that this narrow path is a mistake. We are about to unmask the internal saboteur who whispers that your anxiety is actually a form of protection. The silent strike of the internal saboteur. You are being lied to by a voice inside your own head that tells you that if you stop worrying, you are somehow being irresponsible or cold-hearted. This is the silent strike of the internal saboteur, which is a sophisticated ego trap designed to keep you in a state of productive paralysis. Your ego wants to feel like it is doing something important, and since it cannot control the global economy or the shifting opinions of your board of directors, it settles for the next best thing, which is simulating a crisis. It convinces you that your anxiety is a form of labor, and that as long as you feel bad enough, you are somehow contributing to a solution. This is a complete hallucination that drains your real power while leaving the original problem untouched. You must realize that your worry is not a shield, but a shackle that prevents you from actually moving your hands and your mind toward a real result. Marcus Aurelius warns us about this in the Meditations of Marcus Aurelius. Book 2, paragraph 5, where he tells us to do every act of our life as though it were the very last, and to free ourselves from all distractions and from the fickle influence of the passions, and from the vanity of the ego. Your internal saboteur is the master of vanity because it makes your suffering the center of the universe. It whispers that if you stop checking the news or if you stop ruminating on a past mistake, you are failing your duty as a leader or a provider. In reality, the exact opposite is true, because a leader who is paralyzed by useless concern is a leader who has already abandoned his post. You are currently engaging in a form of mental theater where you act out the drama of a crisis without ever resolving the plot. This theater is expensive because it costs you the very clarity you need to actually save your business or protect your family. You must recognize that your concern is a finite currency, and every time you spend it on something you cannot change, you are stealing from your own future success. The internal saboteur hates silence and it hates logic because those are the only two things that can kill it. It thrives on the noise and the what-ifs that keep you vibrating at a frequency of desperation. By identifying this voice as a saboteur rather than a protector, you strip it of its authority over your nervous system. You are not being irresponsible by being at peace, you are being strategic because a calm mind sees the gaps that a panicked mind misses entirely. You have been conditioned to believe that a furrowed brow and a racing heart are the marks of a serious person, but they are actually the marks of a person who has lost his way. It is time to fire the saboteur and hire the commander who understands that results are the only thing that matters. Now that we have exposed the fake protector, we need to move to the most radical weapon in the Stoic arsenal, which is the power of deliberate and total silence in the face of the world's demands. We are about to discuss why the most powerful thing you can do for your career is to simply not have an opinion about things that do not involve your direct action. The strategic ignorance of the emperor. You are currently drowning in a flood of irrelevant data because you believe that being informed is the same as being powerful, but the exact opposite is true. In 2026, your greatest competitive advantage is not what you know, but what you have the courage to ignore. Most people feel a moral obligation to have an opinion on every headline and every scandal and every social trend, but they are essentially opening the gates of their fortress to every passing beggar and thief. This is a total loss of your internal boundaries. You must understand that you have the absolute power to hold no opinion about things that do not involve your direct action or your character. Marcus Aurelius writes in the Meditations of Marcus Aurelius, Book 6, paragraph 52, that we have the power to hold no opinion about a thing and to not disturb our state of mind for things themselves have no natural power to form our judgments. Every piece of news you consume that you cannot influence is a parasitic load on your processing power. You are running a high-performance machine with 1,000 background apps that are doing nothing but draining your battery and slowing your execution. Strategic ignorance is not about being uninformed, but about being extremely selective about what is allowed to enter the sanctuary of your consciousness. You must implement a radical protocol of information hygiene, where you refuse to process any data that does not lead to a virtuous and effective action under your immediate command. This is how you protect your peace of mind from the digital noise that is designed to keep you in a state of constant reaction. You are not a news aggregator or a social commentator. You are a commander of your own life, and your time is too valuable to be spent on the theater of public outrage. By choosing to be ignorant of the trivial, you become a master of the essential. This requires a level of discipline that most people will never possess because they are addicted to the cheap dopamine of feeling like they are part of a global conversation. You are withdrawing your forces from the edges of the map to defend the core of your empire. When you stop caring about the noise, you find the silence necessary to hear your own logic and your own intuition. You are building a firewall around your focus that ensures that only the highest quality information reaches your decision-making center. This is the luxury of the sovereign who knows that he does not need to answer to the world's demands for his attention. This is not a passive act, but an aggressive defense of your internal territory. You are reclaiming the mental real estate that has been occupied for free by the anxieties of others. Now that you have cleared the clutter of useless data, you are ready to treat your peace as a literal form of capital. We are about to discuss why your indifference is actually the most valuable currency you have in a world that is obsessed with capturing your emotions and selling them back to you at a premium. The currency of indifference. You are currently bankrupting your future because you have a massive leak in your emotional accounting and you do not even realize it. Most people are extremely careful with their bank accounts and their investments, but they are reckless and wasteful with their mental peace, which is the only asset that actually produces a life worth living. You must start treating your peace of mind as a literal financial asset that is being targeted by professional thieves every single hour of the day. Every time you allow a social media post or a political scandal or a minor inconvenience to steal your focus, you are effectively giving away your equity to a venture that offers a 0% return on your investment. You are investing your limited life force into a void that only gives you back frustration and exhaustion in exchange for your energy. Seneca wrote in his Moral Letters to Lucilius, Book 1, Letter 1, that people are frugal in guarding their personal property, but as soon as it comes to squandering time, they are most wasteful of the one thing in which it is right to be stingy. You must apply this same logic to your indignation and your worry. Ask yourself right now what you are buying with your anger and what you are actually gaining with your frustration over a situation you cannot change. If the answer is nothing, then you are making a terrible trade that would get any chief financial officer fired on the spot for incompetence. You need to perform a cold-blooded audit of your emotional expenses and realize that your indifference is actually the highest form of wealth you can possess. When you become indifferent to things that do not involve your virtue or your direct responsibility, you suddenly find yourself with a massive surplus of energy and clarity that you can use to dominate your actual field of play. This is not about being a cold or heartless person, but about being emotionally solvent in a world that is trying to make you broke. You cannot help your family or lead your company if your internal bank is empty and your nerves are frayed by the demands of strangers. By refusing to spend your mental currency on external noise, you are reinvesting that power into your own growth and your own mission. This is the true meaning of a wealth that has a soul, because it is a wealth that the global marketplace cannot touch or liquidate. You are closing the accounts that have been draining your spirit for years, and you are moving your capital into a high-yield vault of stoic silence. This internal liquidity is what allows you to act with absolute power while everyone else around you is begging for a single moment of calm. You are no longer a victim of the world's demands for your outrage because you have realized that your peace is simply too expensive for them to afford. Now that you have reclaimed your capital, you must learn to see through the illusions that were designed to steal it from you in the first place. We are about to strip away the mask of the digital age and reveal the true nature of the noise that has been haunting your focus for far too long. Get ready to dismantle the digital ghosts that have been living in your head rent-free and rediscover what is actually real. The anatomy of a digital ghost: you are currently allowing your peace of mind to be dismantled by entities that have no physical existence and no actual power over your physical reality. In 2026, we have become obsessed with digital ghosts, which are the headlines and the social media comments and the distant opinions of people who do not exist in your actual room. You are giving these pixels the authority to ruin your dinner and interrupt your sleep and distract you from the person sitting right across from you at the table. This is a profound hallucination that treats a flickering screen as if it were a direct threat to your survival. You must realize that a criticism on a screen is nothing more than an arrangement of light, and it only becomes a wound because you choose to open your own skin to let it in. Marcus Aurelius discusses this in the Meditations of Marcus Aurelius, Book 9, paragraph 15, where he explains that things stand outside of us, and they stay by themselves, having no knowledge or opinion of their own. It is our own power of judgment that adds the narrative of pain and transforms a neutral event into a personal disaster. You are haunted by ghosts of what people might think or what an algorithm might do next, but these things are as substantial as smoke in a storm. Epictetus provides the ultimate remedy in the Enchiridion of Epictetus, chapter 20, paragraph 1, where he reminds us that it is not the person who reviles or strikes you who insults you, but your own judgment that they are insulting you. When someone irritates you, you must remember that it is your own opinion which has irritated you. By deconstructing these digital ghosts, you realize that they cannot touch you unless you grant them a passport into your mind. You are the only one who can validate an insult or give weight to a headline that was designed by an AI to trigger your survival instinct. The world is full of people screaming into a void, and you have been tricked into thinking you are the target of that noise. You are not the target, you are simply a data point in a feedback loop that thrives on your reaction. When you stop reacting, the ghosts disappear because they have no life of their own without your attention to feed them. You are reclaiming the power of your own perception and refusing to be haunted by things that are not part of your physical present. This clarity allows you to move through the digital world with the same indifference an emperor would show to a barking dog in a distant village. You are no longer a victim of the shadows on the wall because you have turned your face toward the light of reason. Now that you have banished the ghosts of the digital world, you must learn how to anchor yourself so deeply in the present that the future can no longer pull you away from your purpose. We are about to explore the absolute power of the atomic moment, where your only reality is the single step you are taking right now. The gravity of the present atomic moment. You are currently losing your life because you are trying to live it in a future that does not exist and a past that is already dead. Most high performers in 2026 are mentally spread across a decade of what-ifs and a year of if-onlys, which leaves exactly 0% of their processing power for the task they are holding in their hands right now. This is the ultimate form of professional and personal inefficiency. You must collapse your entire timeline into a single atomic moment that is so small that anxiety has no room to breathe inside it. Anxiety requires a future to survive because it needs the oxygen of later and the fuel of what might happen. By anchoring yourself in the gravity of the present second, you starve the monster of its life force. Marcus Aurelius describes this with surgical precision in the Meditations of Marcus Aurelius. Book 8, paragraph 36, where he tells us not to let the impression of our life as a whole confound us. He instructs us not to dwell on all the various troubles that may come to pass, but in every case to ask ourselves what there is in this that is intolerable and past-bearing, because we will be ashamed to confess it. He reminds us that it is only the present moment that we can lose, because that is all we ever truly have. You are currently treating your life like a marathon you have already run in your head 1,000 times, but the only thing you actually have to manage is the next step. When you focus on the quality of your next breath and the precision of your next sentence and the integrity of your next decision, you become invincible because the future has no way to attack a man who is not there yet. This is the victory of the microscopic. You are no longer overwhelmed by the mountain because you have turned your entire world into the single grain of sand beneath your boot. This radical presence is the only true antidote to the macroscopic noise of the modern world. You are reclaiming the power of the now, which is the only coordinate where your agency actually exists. Every time your mind tries to leap into the next hour or the next month, you must pull it back with the force of a black hole to the work in front of you. This is the gravity that keeps you grounded while everyone else is being swept away by the winds of speculation. You are building a life of substance in a world of shadows. Now that you have anchored yourself in the present, you must prepare to deal with the heaviest baggage you are still carrying. We are about to discuss why the opinions of other people are not assets you should manage but liabilities you should amortize until they reach a value of 0. The amortization of human opinion. You are currently carrying a massive amount of debt that is not recorded on any financial statement, but it is crushing your ability to lead with absolute clarity, and it is the debt of other people's expectations. You have allowed your self-worth to be tied to the fluctuating market of human opinion, which is a market that is notorious for its volatility and its lack of fundamental value. You are essentially acting as a subsidiary of the perceptions of strangers and colleagues and critics who do not have your best interests at heart. You must treat these external judgments as depreciating assets that lose their value the second they are issued because they have no bearing on the core of your character. Marcus Aurelius observes in the Meditations of Marcus Aurelius, Book 12, paragraph 4, that it is a strange thing how we love ourselves more than other people, but we value their opinion of us more than our own. This is a profound error in your psychological accounting. You are sacrificing your internal peace for a shadow that you cannot control, and that does not belong to you. Your reputation exists in the minds of others, and therefore it is their property, and not yours to manage. Seneca tells us in the Moral Letters to Lucilius, Book 5, Letter 47, that it is a sign of a small mind to be flattered by the praise of the masses, or to be crushed by their disapproval. You must begin the process of amortizing these opinions until they reach a book value of 0 in your internal ledger. When you realize that the praise of the crowd is as empty as its criticism, you gain a level of freedom that makes you dangerous to any system that tries to control you through shame or validation. You are reclaiming the total ownership of your own identity by refusing to let it be defined by the shifting winds of social approval. This is how you stop being a servant to the marketplace and start being a sovereign of your own soul. Every time someone tries to project their expectations onto you, you must let that opinion fall to the ground like a dead leaf, because it has no power to change the quality of your virtue. You are no longer performing a role for an audience of digital ghosts, but living a life for the sake of your own truth. This transition allows you to act with a boldness that terrifies those who are still slaves to the crowd. Now that you have liquidated the liabilities of human opinion, you must learn how to retreat into the only place where the world can never find you. We are about to construct a psychological black site where your power is recharged in absolute and untouchable isolation. This internal fortress is the only place where you can truly find the strength to face a world that is constantly trying to break your spirit. The fortress of the invisible interior. You are currently overexposed to a world that never sleeps and never stops demanding a piece of your sanity because you have forgotten how to close the door to your own mind. In 2026, the concept of being off the grid is usually seen as a physical luxury that requires a cabin in the woods, but for a high performer, it is a psychological requirement for survival in the middle of the city. You must construct a psychological black site, which is a space in your internal landscape that is completely disconnected from the internet and the global economy and the social fabric of your industry. This is the fortress of the invisible interior, where you recede to recharge your sovereignty without ever leaving your physical location or abandoning your responsibilities. Marcus Aurelius describes this with absolute beauty in the Meditations of Marcus Aurelius, Book 4, paragraph 3, where he tells us that nowhere can a man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul. He explains that you should constantly grant yourself this retreat and renew yourself because the tranquility you find there is nothing other than the good ordering of the mind. You do not need a vacation or a digital detox to find peace because you carry the ultimate sanctuary inside your own skull at every moment of the day. Most people in your circle are terrified of silence because it forces them to confront the vacuum of their own character, but you are using that silence as a weapon of elite recovery. When the market is screaming and the headlines are burning, you must learn the mental reflex of stepping back into this invisible fortress to remind yourself that none of the external noise has any actual power over your virtue. You are not hiding from reality, but you are anchoring yourself in a reality that is far more stable than the flickering shadows of the marketplace. This internal black site is where you process the raw data of your life through the filter of reason before it has a chance to trigger your nervous system. You are maintaining a state of high readiness by refusing to be constantly online and constantly available to the anxieties of others. By guarding this sanctuary, you ensure that when you do step back into the world, you do so as a commander who is rested and focused, rather than a soldier who is shell-shocked by the constant bombardment of irrelevant information. Your mind is the only territory you ever truly owned, and it is time you treated it like the classified and secure facility that it was meant to be. This internal fortress is the only place where you can find the strength to face a world that is constantly trying to break your spirit for a click or a cent. Now that you have secured the perimeter of your internal fortress and blocked the signals of the external world, you are ready to complete the final transition of this journey. We are about to perform the ultimate act of internal authority and crown you as the absolute master of your own existence in a world that has lost its mind. The coronation of the quiet mind. You have finally reached the moment where the noise of the marketplace must fall silent, and your own voice must become the only authority in the room, because you have spent enough of your life responding to the demands of a world that does not know your name and does not care about your peace. This is the moment of your internal coronation, where you realize that you are no longer a spectator of the chaos, but the absolute director of your own soul. You are now prepared to issue a final decree that you will never again hand the keys of your happiness or your sanity to stakeholders and analysts who do not care about your well-being. This is the definitive end of your life as a high-performing hostage and the beginning of your reign as an inward king who understands that his empire begins and ends with his own power of judgment. You are stepping out of the golden cage you built and into the sunlight of a reality that you define on your own terms. Marcus Aurelius reminds us in the Meditations of Marcus Aurelius, Book 12, paragraph 36, that we should depart from this life with grace and kindness, just as the actor leaves the stage when the play is finished. He tells us that the one who has dismissed you is satisfied, and that you should go your way with a smiling face, because the one who dismisses you is also smiling. You must apply this same grace to your old self and your old fears by letting them go without a single look backward, because they no longer have a place in the new architecture of your mind. Epictetus challenges us in the Enchiridion of Epictetus, chapter 51, paragraph 2. To stop behaving like children, and to finally start living as adults who have decided what is right and what is wrong. He asks how much longer you will wait to think yourself worthy of the best, and to never again transgress the requirements of reason. Your success is now a bedrock of unshakable virtue rather than a fragile mask, because you have found a wealth that has a soul and a power that cannot be liquidated by any bank or any government. You are the only person who can grant you permission to be at peace, and you are now exercising that right with absolute and permanent finality. The silence of your internal sovereignty is the ultimate return on your investment, and it is a return that no market crash or social upheaval can ever diminish. You have stopped chasing symbols of power and have become power itself in its purest and most concentrated form. Go forth and rule the only territory that truly matters, which is the space between your ears and the quality of your own daily choices. Your life is no longer a reaction to the world, but a manifestation of your own will and your own reason. Finally, the empire is yours, and it is time for you to live as the sovereign you were always meant to be. The transition is complete, and the king has returned to his throne within the silent fortress of his own reason. You are now untouchable, because you have realized that nothing can truly harm the soul that is anchored in truth and virtue. This is not the end of your journey, but the beginning of your real life as a free person who owns themselves completely. Stand tall in your new sovereignty and never look back at the cage you have left behind. For you are the master of your fate and the captain of your soul.